Good afternoon, everybody. Mayor Zach Vruwink here. We've got a great showing again for our second business briefing. Welcome, everyone. Happy Friday. Just to remind ourselves, it is Friday. If you're like me and struggling to figure out what day it is of the week, it's great to have. We've got 65 folks joining us this afternoon. So thanks for taking some time to get dialed in. I believe everybody should be muted at this time. If you do have a question, we want to remind folks as they have questions, if they're on the online link, there is a chat feature, so feel free to initiate your question there. And then if we have time, depending on the call and the briefings that we've got scheduled, we'll try to take some questions via the phone, if again, time allotted. So want to welcome everyone again to the second briefing call held jointly with our partners at the Chamber and the County Health Department. I appreciate each of you taking time to work with us on getting this information to our business community. In addition to this opportunity for our businesses, I want to mention that updated information and briefings are being shared with the public on the City of Wisconsin Rapids and Health Department social media accounts and public access TV station for those that don't have online access. Earlier today, I spoke with Governor Evers, who called me to check on our community and ask some questions. I'll get to those in my update. But before we get into our local briefings, we've got today we're joined by another important partner amidst this pandemic, representing our district in Congress, Congressman Ron Kind. Congressman, thank you for taking time out of what has been a hectic time in Washington and of course, in your office, dealing with constituent concerns in Washington as well as here. We understand that the federal stimulus package was prepared and passed by the House, and we invite you to give an update about what happened in Washington this week.
Hey, I can hear you fine. Yep.
All right, great. Thanks for joining us. We'll turn the floor over to you.
Happy to do it. Zach, thanks so much. If you can hear me, let me just take a few minutes to give people an update. But as I do, first of all, I want to thank everyone at the community level there at Rapids and throughout Wood County for the type of coordination and the collaboration that I see taking place. It's exactly what's needed right now to respond to the healthcare crisis at our doorstep and also the economic crisis that we're trying to deal with. Now, over the last few weeks, Congress has really taken unprecedented action in an expedited fashion, in a bipartisan way, to try to respond to both the healthcare needs and the economic needs that we face right now. We've passed 3 major pieces of legislation already, trying to get as much funding out there into the healthcare sector, but also with the local economy in order to battle the virus and to make sure that this economy doesn't just collapse from out beneath us. We funneled a lot of money to testing, trying to develop a statewide testing regime. We're still not there yet. Progress is being made, but we still have a ways to go to make sure there's comprehensive testing so we can collect the data, know where the virus is, and how we can best respond to it. Also, money for vaccine development and expedited clinical trials, along with a global distribution center. Money for the personal protection equipment that our healthcare providers need to keep them safe as they're treating patients, along with the ventilators, the respirators, the N95 masks, trying to develop that distribution system throughout our country. Money to shore up the nutrition program, senior and children. Now that the kids are not in school, we want to make sure we do a continuation of those food assistance programs for them, maintaining Meals on Wheels for seniors at home, and there's funding for it. Recently, however, with today's passage of the bill, that was directed more to shoring up the economy to create a bridge towards the end of this healthcare crisis so that our economy can recover as quickly as possible. We do that through the check rebates that will be going out to individuals and the families. It'll be $1,200 per person. There are income limits, however. Those earning $75,000 or less will get the full amount, and then that phases out up to $100,000. And for couples, they'll get the full amount at $150,000 or less, and then it phases out up to $200,000. And there's a $500 child tax credit. We're encouraging people, though, if they haven't signed up with the IRS for direct deposits to do so that money can be directly deposited into their account. That would solve a lot of problems as far as missing checks, fraud, theft, you name it. So we're trying to get that word out. And then we're trying to shore up small business help right now. That's defined as 500 or fewer employees, but we're going to be offering SBA loans and forgive those loans for expenses related to payroll. So all employee wages will be covered for the next 2.5 months, and also it dates back to February 15th. and any expenses related to rent, mortgage, or utilities. Also, businesses will be able to defer their payroll tax contribution until next year to help with their cash flow problems that they might be experiencing. And then recognizing, Zach, that last week 3.3 million unemployed individuals were extending the unemployment insurance program for an additional 13 weeks. We're plussing that up by $600 per week in order to provide some cushion for people during this time. But we're really trying to encourage businesses large and small. Try to keep as many of your workers on payroll with this federal backstop paying for it right now. It'll be a lot easier for our recovery if we can do that, so that these businesses, when it's time for them to get up and start fully functioning again, don't have to dip into the labor market given the intense competition that's going to be existing there. And with any recovery, our public health officials, as I can't say enough for the work that Conferment has been doing in Wood County, trying to coordinate there so that we're best prepared, reaching out to various chambers around the district too to get a sense of what the community needs are. Today I was on the conference call with our rural hospitals, Wisconsin Hospital Association, also with community banks, the credit unions, along with other various groups, trying to get information out as far as what the response will be. But this is an attitude of we're all in this together. We have to be. We're going to have a strong federal, state, and local partnership to get through this. We're going to have to be responsive to the needs that you bring to our attention. Even though this last package is roughly $2 trillion plus, we understand that Congress is going to have to stay flexible and nimble to address additional concerns, shortfalls, soft spots that we have in the system. But right now, I hope we're all on the same page, and I'm hearing this consistent message here in Wisconsin: social distancing. I mean, we found through history and also found in China, South Korea, Singapore, the places that went first. It's those communities that acted first and most aggressively in implementing social distancing practices. They didn't get it hit as deep. It didn't last as long. This is a way to slow down the spread so that our healthcare system does not become overwhelmed, and we're still not out of the woods. So the more you all can be doing back home to express that, get that word out, get the buy-in that we need in the community, it's the only thing that we can do as individuals to help save our healthcare system against this capacity surge that we don't want to see. So, Zach, let me just keep it right there with those. There's a lot of other things that we're addressing in the package. There might be some individual questions or suggestions.
Great. Thank you very much, Congressman Kind. I'm going to unmute our chamber president as she had to drop off here, and perhaps she's got a couple of questions. Some of the folks in the business community have reached out to her, and I'm going to go and unmute her line. Angel, did you like to jump in?
Can you guys hear me?
We can. Thank you. I know we had some audio issues for a second.
Okay,
there,
perfect. Thank you. Yeah, we've gotten quite a few calls from some of our local business community leaders and businesses, and a lot of the questions are, what does the timeline look like for the funding to be released to the individual states and downward to those businesses, as they know that those are coming, but a timeline is kind of what they're looking for, so when they can anticipate applying and who's facilitating those funds, and what does that look like for them?
Well, thanks, Angela. And again, thanks for the job you're doing, trying to help coordinate things and get the message out back home. Listen, we're going to try to step this up and get it out as expeditiously as possible. Obviously, these are big programs with a lot of money that's going to be flowing in short order. The individual checks that will be sent out, again, Treasury is hoping that no later than 3 weeks, those direct deposits, every Social Security number will qualify, including if you may be a senior and only receiving Social Security as your monthly. All business programs are set up for nonprofits, for sole proprietorships, for entrepreneurs. It's really a quite expansive definition with the program. Now that it's signed into law, however, the various agencies in charge of getting these programs out locally are hard at work developing the rules, the regs that have to go along with it, along with sufficient oversight. So we're going to be working hand in glove with them, try to simplify and expedite this process as much as possible. A lot of that's going to be based on your feedback, what you're hearing, any hurdles or obstacles that might develop. I encourage you to get in touch with my office. Amy Sue's on the line right now, too, and she's constantly in the community looking for feedback so we can deliver that to the federal task force that's been charged and also the federal agencies that will have jurisdiction over all these programs.
Thank you, Angel. Did you have any other follow-up questions?
I think there was one question that I briefly saw about, where was that? Someone asked about if laid-off employees who are healthy apply for the 80-hour paid sick leave provided in the FFCRA, is the question.
Yeah, one of the previous bills, Angel, that we passed does provide paid sick leave along with paid and medical leave, and that, again, is going to be picked up at the federal level. The paid sick leave is for 14 days, which is usually the life of the virus that we're finding. The paid family and medical leave is up to 12 weeks, I believe. Now, those dates are flexible. I think Congress is going to have to be nimble and respond if we have to be pushing those out, given how deep or how long the virus lasts in our community. So that, too, is an option for people, certainly for employers, to encourage them to keep employees on payroll instead of letting them go and having them sign up for UI benefits instead. And the other thing, I've been getting some inquiries, too, about how the small business loan program is going to work. Obviously, a lot of our local community bankers participate in it. A few of our credit unions do. But under the legislation, we're going to recertify these lending institutions, community, regional banks, credit unions, that if they want to participate, they can and be certified to do so. Another way to streamline these small business loans, they're no interest. And again, if the money is being used for payroll protection, for utilities, rent or mortgage, all that's going to be covered by the federal government dating back to February 15th, and then for an additional 2.5 months as we look forward. And again, those dates, I think, are going to have to remain flexible depending on where we are at that point.
Thank you. We have some other questions coming through. Do you still have a little bit of time for some more questions?
I do. Yeah, fire away.
Perfect. So what are the stipulations for the loan/grants when using the funds for payroll, rent, and utilities? I think you kind of touched on that, but can you do that again, please?
Yeah, again, as long as it's going to payroll, rent, utilities, mortgage payments, that will be forgiven. Those loans don't have to be repaid. And the timing of this is date of enactment, 2.5 months out, but we also made it retroactive to February 15th. So the whole idea is to create this bridge to the other side. Of course, the virus is going to dictate when we're going to be able to start opening up this economy again, and that's going to depend on consumer and business confidence. It's going to be hard to restore that confidence if the virus is still very much rooted in our community and if we still have a healthcare struggle on our hands. So that's the definition. The local lenders will be in charge as conduits of the small business loans. There's a 100% federal guarantee and backstop with the program, and we're hoping this will stem the tide of unemployed workers so that we're able to get back up on our feet as quickly as possible.
Wonderful. Thank you. Another question in regards to the SBA forgiveness loans, is the documentation going to be a lengthy process, or is it going to be a lower key document that isn't going to be so intensive for local businesses and organizations?
Yeah, the idea here, and we've reached out to the SBA to talk to them more about how they want to define the program, but we're hoping a lot of this can be handled online. But my suggestion to the small businesses already is contact the local lender you're already doing business with if you have an interest in participating in the program. I don't know why you wouldn't, in order to get in the queue so that when it's ready to go and it's operational, we'll be able to start processing those claims as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you for that recommendation. Another question is, Is there a cap on the business income for the grant process and loans?
Yeah, I think it's capped at $10 million, so it's a pretty high, generous cap. And we're only talking about now the small businesses that have 500 or fewer employees. Now, if there's a business larger than that, also in this legislation is a 50% federal tax credit for payroll protection, up to $10,000 per employee. So the small businesses, large businesses aren't completely left out of this too. There are incentives to encourage them to maintain their current payroll levels so that they don't end up having to lay off a lot of people.
Wonderful. And I just want to kind of briefly touch, because this was one of the first questions that I asked, was about the timeline, about the benefits for the small business relief. Could you say in the next 2 months? Could you say in the next 3 or 4 months? Can you give us a general idea of, for our listeners, as many of them are small business owners, just a very rough estimate in your mind what you think it would be?
Well, what's nice is we're dealing with an already operating program, so we don't have to recreate the wheel here. We're going to be going through the SBA loan process for 7As already that exists. So the only difference now is we're going to be opening up the number of lending institutions that want to participate and pre-certify them so that they can get in the game too, so they can start working directly with their own individual clients. And we're hoping in a matter of weeks here, Angel, not months. Time is of the essence. We're really trying to work with the federal agencies to get them up and running. And that's why we structured the legislation with what programs already existed, so we don't have to create something entirely new. That these agencies know how they work. We're just going to be dealing in multitudes of what they've done in the past.
Wonderful. Thank you for elaborating that on a little bit more. Again, I know that's one of the biggest questions is they know help is coming, but a timeline is always crucial, especially to these small businesses such as restaurants and some of our local bar establishments as well, as they're all in our thoughts as this is quite a difficult time for all small business. Again, I'm going to ask one more time, does anyone else that's participating on the video chat have any questions at this time before we let the Ron Kine go today?
Looks like we've got a question, Angel, that we can address later in the briefing pertaining to emergency medical supplies for hospitals and public safety, and we can get to that when we get through the health department briefing. Well, Congressman, thank you so much for taking time out of what's really an unprecedented time for all of us, and it means a lot for all of us at the local level to connect the federal government with the city and with the local community here. We're all in this together, and as you mentioned, all these partners need to be working together, and so we appreciate you taking time personally out of your day to address these questions and concerns.
Okay, happy to do it, Zach. Angel, maybe we can do this again in the future. Obviously, more questions will arise as these programs become better known. Zach, we also included substantial funding in order to backfill some of the state and local budgets, city budgets like yours, that's going to be impacted by this too, in order to help you meet your needs. I think the money that's initially part of it, roughly $100 billion, is probably going to be woefully inadequate. We're working on that funding formula right now to see what all Wisconsin's going to be able to get back and what the local communities like Rapids will qualify for too. So as soon as we get a better clarification, we'll let you know what that looks like.
Great. Thanks so much.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, we're going to continue into our briefing here in the time allotted remaining. In my conversation with Governor Evers this morning, first of all, he wants to send his regards to all of our community members and businesses at this very difficult time. As he worked through the Safer at Home order that he issued earlier this week, he wanted to restate the balance that he and a number of our local representatives, Representative Krug, Senator Teston, and the like, wanted to be able to have flexibility and have some nimbleness as it relates to the essential and non-essential business designation. So we'll get to more details on that briefly, but the governor wanted to remind us all that there's a significant balance here to be struck between public health as well as continuing to support the economy and keep our critical and essential businesses going during this time. The other thing he also wanted to remind folks and draw attention to, he specifically spoke about bar and restaurant employees that might be laid off or partially have had cutbacks in their schedules to be filing those unemployment insurance claims with the state. As the Congressman just talked about, the federal stimulus, how that impacts the state's ability. I know I've gotten a lot of residents that have contacted me that have had difficulties getting through the phone lines. Remind folks, do file those online if you can. That way you get your claim in the system. The other piece that he reaffirmed as of right now, and it's not likely to change, but things could change, that the April 7th election is still on schedule. And at the city level, we're reminding folks, particularly those that are concerned about their ability. We want to remind folks they still have their right, and they must, and we're preserving their ability to vote here at the city as well as the neighboring jurisdictions around us to be able to vote in person absentee. So that's available during business hours at the City Hall here or at other jurisdictions in the region. And also filing an in-person or an online absentee ballot request. Those can be filed all the way up until April 2nd, so next Thursday. And then after that, folks will have to vote in person on April 7th. Another piece, I don't know if we've got any municipal clerks on the call, but we'll mention that I strongly encourage the governor to call on the legislature to work with them on allowing folks to be able to process those in-person absentee ballots much earlier than Election Day. Otherwise, we run the risk of sort of make sure folks are muting their lines. I think everybody should be muted, but remind folks to mute your lines if you're conducting other business. The other piece, as it relates to the absentee ballots, we want folks to be able to get their absentee ballots counted so we don't have days after the election having election results. So that's something that the governor is working with the League of Wisconsin Municipalities and with the clerks around the state. One other thing that we're working through at the city level, and I know we've got our state representatives on the call, Representative Krug, at least I know he's joined the call. I'm going to be calling on effectively, you say you heard it here first, calling on our state representatives and delegation to allow the local governments like the City of Wisconsin Rapids some flexibility and when we can collect property taxes. I mentioned last week on last week's call that a lot of people are concerned, businesses in particular, about making that decision of whether they keep their people employed or they lay them off and pay their property taxes. And that's a decision we don't take lightly here at the city. And I know personally from my business experience that cash flow is so important, particularly during trying times. And so we're going to be calling on the legislature. There's a state bill that'll be potentially introduced at the state legislature to postpone or provide cities like ours the ability to postpone property tax payments. Same goes for room tax filings. We've got a lot of hoteliers that are hit by this, as well as everyone basically had to cancel their travel plans. And we're going to ask hoteliers to file their property tax filings on their deadline in April. But we're working on identifying a way for us to postpone the actual date that they would have to file those taxes with the city. And finally, one other mention I'll make is regarding the Central Wisconsin Economic Development Loan Fund. Its acronym is CWED. It's on the screen for those that are on the video conference. The loan fund is a regional fund that Wisconsin Rapids participates in. I find myself currently as the acting president, as our president just retired from his job. And we met today to talk through disaster assistance working capital. So for small businesses to be able to have access to working capital to keep their operations going. Because at the end of the day, we're really concerned that if businesses do have to close 100%, that there's a likelihood that some of those businesses won't reopen. And so we want to mention that that resource that's going to be coming to us going forward. One of the first steps in the process was taken today, and some more information will be coming on that. And that really concludes the portion of my briefing. So we'll move into our health department update. If there are questions, again, as folks have them, feel free to ask them within the chat feature, and we'll get to them either as we go or at the end of each individual speaker. So our next speaker is Christy Rauter-Egge from the Wood County Health Department, where a lot of this is, again, ground zero. Christy, we thank thank you for taking time out of your busy week to provide a briefing to everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you for organizing these and scheduling these. They're really important. There's a lot of information out there that's not true, and it's hard to weed through a lot of the information that we're seeing on our news stations and our social media pages and whatnot. So first of all, I wanted to provide you guys with updated, what we're putting out is an infographic every single day with updated numbers that includes Wood County positive, negative test results, as well as the state of Wisconsin. So as you can see, our deaths continue to rise in the state of Wisconsin, and we're really preparing for the surge in local public health and really preparing our healthcare systems. They're doing what we can to be there to help them as they're preparing. We did get an additional positive test result yesterday and put out a press release on that specific result as well. It's important for people to remember that, you know, one of the things that is different for us in a rural community in rural central Wisconsin is what we've had on our side is time. There's a lot of communities in the nation that didn't have this much time to prepare, to gear up, and they're being hit extremely hard. So we should be very thankful for the fact that we've had time. And we're going to continue to see these numbers increase. Remember that these numbers right now for these tests are people that were tested, in some cases, a week to a week and a half ago. And so these numbers are going to continue to rise, and I think that really just indicates even more the importance of the governor's order, the safer at home order, and that it needs to be taken seriously, that this is truly, we know, there's no other way to prevent the spread of this virus. We have, I sit on multiple medical calls daily. There's no known treatment even at this time. There's no vaccine that exists, so please take it seriously. Physical distancing is, or social distancing, what you've been hearing it called, but now it's changing to physical distancing because we really want people to stay connected socially for everyone's mental health. You can advance to the next slide, Emily. It's really important that you're not scheduling play dates with your kids. You're not having dinner parties. You know, have a dinner party over FaceTime or Google Hangout. Just please stay with around as few people as you possibly can. That is the only way we're going to stop the spread of this, and people need to take it seriously. So there are some tips that I have attached for you when the slides are sent out, tips for staying safe and tips for shopping safely, what you should do to protect yourself, wash your hands, to stay well, just some of our basic preventive measures. We're stressing only travel for essential functions. You should not be traveling for anything else at all. And I know that sounds drastic, but honestly, you should be traveling to get your groceries, to get your medications, and if you're sick and you need to go to the doctor, you should be traveling for that. But other than that, you should not be traveling. You should be staying home. What folks don't, it's sometimes hard to realize that we don't have a lot of COVID cases right now, but we do have people in our healthcare systems that are in ICU that are being held to wait to rule out COVID. And so if we have a surge and somebody in your family gets sick with something else, then your family member will not be able to get care because our healthcare systems will be too busy. So you have to remember, you have to understand why public health is putting in these safety measures to keep people safe, to keep people healthy. One of the things so if people have questions about that specifically, I'm happy to answer. We've gotten a lot of questions on our Facebook page, and I monitor that continuously, and we're responding to those as quick as we can. The governor issued the stay-at-home order, and we have had a lot of questions about essential versus non-essential businesses. In some cases, it's really clear, but in others, it's not. And so if you're unsure whether or not your business is essential, there's a link attached that you can go to and fill out an inquiry form to find out whether or not you are, in fact, essential. We've been told that they're responding to those rather quickly, which is good to hear. And then if you're able to, you can call and let the health department know. We have been getting a ton of calls, and so we've been tracking and monitoring some of those grayer areas. And as we learn of what places that are considered essential, we're just keeping note of that so people are aware and local law enforcement is aware as well. And then I think it's important in this time that we've never gone through anything like this in the past, and it's really challenging to not be able to go out in our communities and to be connecting with each other. And we know how we're social beings. Humans are social, so we're resilient. We're going to be fine. But there is numbers and different lines that you can use to text if you need to talk to someone, talk to a crisis specialist. Call your friends, call your family, check in on them, make sure they're okay. Just show them what you're watching on TV. Have dinner together over your screen. There's a lot of things you can do to be social without physically being next to each other. And of course, remember to go outside. You don't have to be inside your house. Get some fresh air. The sun is still shining today, despite the fact that it was supposed to stop at noon. So go outside and get some vitamin D. Get a walk in. Just take care of yourself mentally and physically. The last couple of things I want to talk about really quick are there is a lot of efforts happening now at the federal level and at the state level around PPE. Earlier this week, the health department put out a press release for PPE donations, and we've been gathering those and distributing them to our top priority folks, which are our healthcare providers. And we have gotten a great deal of PPE donated. If any of you know of anyone that has PPE they're willing to donate, you can donate it. You can also wait for or go through the governor's program as well. We knew we could move a little bit quicker, and that's why we did. So we have it collected already, and we've had our providers already pick it up from our office. So just wanted you to be aware of that. There's also the information coming out around the insurance commissioner asking Wisconsin insurers to give small businesses the ability to keep their employees insured during this time where they're maybe furloughed or laid off. So that's more to come, and maybe under the next briefing we'll have an update. Things are happening so quickly, which is really amazing to see everyone coming together. And then the fact that healthcare, a lot of our local healthcare and a lot of healthcare around the state is moving to telehealth services so that healthcare providers can care for those in most need and be nimble and be hyper-focused. And so there's a great deal of efforts that have been happening around that, and I know both Marshfield and Aspirus are moving into that direction. We have a community resource task force that has been surveying local organizations to find out what their gaps and what their barriers are, as well as what they're doing right now so that we can be gathering that information. The first survey went out last week, and we, as a department, organized that, and we'll be sharing out with everyone the results in a way to hopefully minimize duplication of efforts and determine if there is maybe a gap that someone can pick up and help with. And that will be a survey that will be done weekly, so watch for that. Or if you want to take that survey, please reach out to the department and we can get you on the list. And then lastly, we did get some feedback on farmers market tips and practices that we'll be implementing for the farmers market season this year. So as we look to gear up for some of our local, to be able to purchase local foods, and we can, that can be shared as well. I don't need to go into the details of that, but there'll definitely be some changes to our market in the future. So all things to watch for.
Great, Christy. Thank you so much. Again, I want to remind folks the chat feature is available for any questions that are arising. There was one raised shortly ago, and that was related to preparing empty spaces for possible emergency care. I know, Christy, this came up on our planning call Friday last week and on Monday as it relates to mass casualty or other isolation or quarantine, mass quarantine spaces. It's being discussed at the county level, but maybe you want to go ahead and talk about that some more for the question.
Certainly, it is being addressed. We have developed an isolation facilities plan, and that plan includes working with a number of organizations on either the north end or the south end of the county. We have a number of hotel providers that are stepping forward and have offered their space in the need of an event where we would have either healthcare workers that need a place to stay that they don't want to go home for the fear of infecting their families, or if we need to isolate folks who have tested positive for COVID-19. So those isolation facility plans will be finalized as of Monday was our goal, coming Monday to finalize those. We started working on them this week. We also have a mortality or a mass casualty plan that we're also working on, and that is in planning phases and should be ready to go early next week as well.
Excellent, thank you. Other questions in the chat feature. Let me just double check to see if there was anything in here. The question Joe had raised related to local and state healthcare infrastructure supplies. Anything we can provide to support our local hospitals. Christy, you did talk a little bit about that as it relates to the personal protective equipment. Is there anything further from that standpoint?
Yeah, and actually that's a great point. I had meant to mention this as well. So on the slides there is listed some of the PPE that they're looking for. Specifically, I know a call out was made to me yesterday around face shields. So if anyone has any face shields, we have been able to get a lot of N90 or a lot of masks and a lot of other PPE. Both of the healthcare systems locally are taking sewn masks, hand sewn masks, and both of them. And one so far, I believe, is taking 3D printed masks as well, which is amazing what technology can do. So there are patterns. If you are interested in making them, you can reach out to the health department. We can get you the information, or I know both healthcare system providers have put out calls for that stuff as well.
I know our library is putting their 3D printers in their maker space to use, making some 3D masks. I know we're working with the school district on doing the same, so it's pretty encouraging. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to move into a brief update from our community development director here, Kyle. You all met him if you were on the call last week, and he's got another weekend under his belt here at the City of Wisconsin Rapids. So Kyle is, I'm going to back away if you want to slide your chair over. If you want to be on camera.
Thank you, Mayor. So while streets are quiet, please know that building inspections and code enforcement activities are still occurring. The Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services has allowed and recommended inspections to continue. If construction projects continue, city inspectors have an obligation to ensure the safety of those buildings now and in the future. Many projects are continuing to move forward locally, both commercial and residential, and it's important for us to continue to respond to those projects to ensure that after this crisis, we are still able to further the economy in that regard. We ask that those who are undertaking construction projects to understand that inspection protocol may slightly be affected in response to COVID-19, which may include different delays and communication issues. However, know that we are taking certain protocols and procedures, such as video and photo-based inspections, to address these concerns and the social distancing requirements placed upon us. So we are limiting face-to-face contact, and also know that we are still doing in-person inspections for different facilities, complex projects, and some healthcare facilities, as it is important to continue to ensure that they're getting served by our office. Follow-up after in-person inspections will likely occur via electronic means, again, to limit contact and ensure distancing. Lastly, know that some inspections have been rescheduled as well. Inspections will operate according to Wisconsin Department of Health and Services guidelines and will coordinate with contractors and applicants to minimize risk during these inspections. It's been mentioned already previously that if you are questioning what is an essential business, you can visit the website shown on the slide. It's the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation Essential Businesses website, where they do define many. So if a contractor is questioning whether or not they are included as an essential business, they can visit that website. With regards to our office's duties in community development planning, zoning, and other things, know that we are continuing to operate normally, albeit under remote circumstances in some instances, meaning that we're still issuing permits for new construction, additions, renovations, and anything else that our office reviews. Should you need any assistance, phone and email are the best means for contact, as our physical office at City Hall is closed to the public. Please understand, however, during this time that our level of service may be affected in response to COVID-19. You can visit our department main page for more information in regards to local permitting and procedures. I'll finish with code enforcement. I also wish to add again that citizens and businesses need to please continue to comply with local codes, especially regarding property maintenance. The city's code enforcement officer is still out in the community on duty, but has been instructed to significantly limit contact with residents and to implement similar tactics as the building inspectors to minimize risks. Maintaining the city's property and aesthetic integrity during this time is crucial as it can lift morale and assist in the road to recovery. The last portion of my presentation is in regards to what Zach had mentioned, the Central Wisconsin Economic Development Fund, which again on the screen on the slide you will see some parameters of the loan and a link to the website, which also has many business resources, which Angel will go over shortly. That is all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Angel, do you want to take it over from here, or do we need to unmute you?
I think my computer microphone is working, so as long as everyone can hear me, we should be okay.
Great, thanks.
First, I just want to start off with kind of echoing what Christine was saying about togetherness. Right now is a difficult time for not only businesses, but us as individuals. So I think it's important that we stay connected as best as we can while still following the distancing that we need. So contact your family, contact your friends, go outside. We're all in this together as a community, and moving forward, we need to make sure that we're contacting each other to be that support mechanism. So we're stronger together as Central Wisconsin, and we want to make sure that all the community members are having their voices heard and are staying connected. So as I go through the information in the next few slides, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our office, or you can reach out to Zach as well, but know that we're here as a resource for you, and we want to be connected and stay together and help the community in this difficult time. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. So I'm not going to go into a lot of the resources really detailed because we have touched on some of these. And again, all of this information is on the Chamber's website, so WisconsinRapidsChamber.com. So the SBA disaster loans, we were notified late last night and early this morning that they have taken down their online form. I think they're having so many people apply that their site has crashed a few times. So it looks like they're doing a fillable PDF form now that you can fill out, and then you can upload back to the SBA website. The SBDC with Melissa Meschke and Mark Spears, they're a great resource and tool, so we're excited to always partner with them, and they're kind of helping through this process. Some other things that have recently came up is the USDA has implemented some measures to help rural area residents, businesses, and communities that are affected. So there's some applications and some in-depth information on relief programs available. Those applications are due no later than April 15th, and it includes housing service, utility service, and then cooperative services for those businesses. So again, as I go through this, please feel free to check out all this information for specific detail. The WEDC, as previously mentioned, has a small business 2020 program. This program is limited to people or businesses that are affiliated with CDFIs. So please check out that information to know if you're affiliated or have a loan with one of those organizations. Moving forward, WEDC also did provide strategic strategies for small businesses to navigate through the COVID-19 challenge. So as we're looking at new creative ways to continue to have business flowing at this time, this is an 18-page really resource for you to use to kind of continue on business and be thinking about not only now, but the recovery process as a business owner. Generate is a company that's out of the Madison area, and they are working with the Wisconsin Emergency Response Program, and they're doing virtual programs to help small business with the outbreak. So they're trying to help them go through the resource process so that way they can find which resources best service them. You can go to that link and you can register, and they'll send you the webinar information on there. It is past the registration time, but they do send the links afterwards so you can see the webinar after it's been recorded. additionally, the Heart of Wisconsin is affiliated with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and they have some great information about some of the workforce support needs that have come out, whether that's the Families First Response Act or the CARES Act or related to unemployment. The link that's attached on this slide specifically has a breakdown of what exactly those pieces of legislation are and what do they mean and how does that directly affect the business community. So this again is just another summary sheet, so that way when you're reading information, this is true information that's coming. I can't stress that enough, is we get a lot of phone calls with people confused because there's so much either fake news or misunderstood news, and we want to try to combat that as much as possible. We want real factual information, and on our website, only the information provided is provided either from the county, the state, or WMC, which is something we're affiliated with as well. I'm going to continue down on this slide. The Institution for Business and Entrepreneurs, KIVA, and the Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative Cooperative all have some loan opportunities for small businesses, and that information is listed. Please feel free to check that out. It's just another way that we can look at different loans and different processes to help support the local small businesses. One that we're excited about, personally myself, is Facebook has committed to helping small businesses. Now, they have a grant program that they are starting. A number of us have subscribed to get the notifications as the process for this grant application program goes. They don't have anything quite yet on the specifics or how the application is going to proceed, but we should get that information in the next few weeks. And as soon as we get more of that, again, we'll be sending that out with opportunities. And they also have the Business Resource Hub, so feel free to check that out. They have lots of information about with toolkits, quick action guides, and courses on different variety of topics. Again, another research is the Hmong Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce Emergency Loan Fund. They recently came out and had different opportunities. They've kind of changed their revolving loan program to essentially help fit the specific needs with low interest rates as well. And then some of this information I briefly covered at our last briefing. So again, as a reminder, filing your taxes and paying your taxes, that has been extended the 90 days to July 15th. WMC, which is the Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, offers free webinars. You can either sign up for them right away, or they have a specific link, which is on this slide, that has the recaps from them. So it goes from talking to our U.S. Senate, to some of our local representatives, to the grocery associations and restaurants association. Again, these are free of charge and available for the community to watch, again, because we just want people informed with correct, true information. And the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection has been authorized to enforce Wisconsin's price gouging status. So if you have specific questions on that, the information, again, is on there and how that's affecting businesses. What we've also done is we've partnered with the City of Wisconsin Rapids to have an interactive map for our business community. So on this link, it's a basic survey where you enter your business name, contact information, hours, and it populates you on an interactive map where people can then find you and find your hours easy. As we know that this is changing based on day to day, this information can be updated fairly quickly, and it's an easy resource for consumers as well. And then I just want to say that we know how important it is to support local business right now, and by doing so and doing the essential things that you need, such as grocery shopping, briefly covered, this is ways you can stay safe by still supporting local businesses. Washing hands, watch what you're touching, disinfecting carts and handles, make sure you're taking care of how you're sneezing and you're coughing, and of course, limiting how often you're going out, and that social distancing or physical distancing, as she said, is the new phrase that we're looking at. So still be safe while you're out there. And then as we get more and more information on the national and state level with some of the news and the information being produced, I just kind of wanted to have some information in there about we're going to be posting some more news articles as they come out to keep the community updated, as these aren't necessarily top headlines, but they're important headlines that we want to share with the community.
And as it relates to news, Angel, I'm just going to step in here real quickly. There was a bit of news that came out during our call, and that was a directive by Governor Evers to bar evictions and foreclosures. That it doesn't relieve anyone's obligations that they may have otherwise to pay, whether it be a rent or a mortgage. But as of over this period of 60 days, the governor is putting a moratorium on evictions and foreclosures. So those that might be renting their commercial space from somebody, again, it's not relieving your need to pay for your obligations, but if you find yourself in a situation, we remind folks to continue to communicate with their landlords if they find themselves in that situation.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, I know we're over our 45-minute time slot that we made everyone aware that we would take this afternoon, but we do have two state representatives, or at least one for sure, Representative Krug on the call, and I'm going to go to them if they had any further comments. I just need to unmute their line, so just give me 1 second. All right, Scott, you've been unmuted. If you want to take a minute to say a few words.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Angel, and everyone on the call today. Just to reiterate, all the resources that you've heard from folks are great options for everyone as you're going through some times of struggle here. One of the bigger things to let everybody know is the biggest resource we can provide you is getting you back to your businesses and back to normal operations as soon as possible. So I think it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure that you're reinforcing in all your social media that we follow stay at home. We make sure that we're going out for essential businesses, that we are using resources that are available to us right now, but also reminding ourselves that the best way to get back to normal business is just following this for the 15 days, 30 days as those orders are going through. You'll see, as Zach mentioned, at 1:15 today, the governor put out another order underneath the executive order he put out originally in March. So that's 15 orders now that have been put out in consecutive nature and all of these things. So our office is fielded calls from everybody from the definition of essential business to election law to you name it. We are gathering all that information and disseminating it and interpreting it all for everybody as much as we can in real time. I know particularly in Facebook has been the best method so far. So I encourage you, if you have questions and you're not getting an answer from a state agency, to reach out to myself, reach out to Nancy Vandermeer, Senator Teston, to make sure that we can get you those answers in real time instead of waiting in long lines through the bureaucracy to get back to you. We've got better ends with some of those resources that can get you answers as quickly as humanly possible. So with that, I'll turn it over. Recognizing time is short for everybody here and valuable. Just want to thank everybody for being on the call today and paying attention to being safer at home.
Okay. Thanks, Scott. Next slide. Okay. In the interest of time, we don't have any questions in the chat box, but we'd be happy to answer those questions directly. We did, as we did last week, we've got our email addresses on here. It's kind of hard to see, but it's my first initial last name at wirapids.org, or maybe a little easier for folks is just mayor@wirapids.org. Goes directly to me. Office number is 715-421-8202. If you or others have questions in the community as it relates to the enforcement of the order or the business resources or some of the things that were mentioned on the call today, Angel's information as well is on here. It's president@wisconsinrapidschamber.com, and they can you certainly can reach out to any of us, the representatives on the call. I guess we do have a question. It looks like that popped up. Good question. What's the enforcement of the safer at home order? Do people need safe passage letters to go into their offices? It's a common question. No, there are no permits or safe passage. The way the order was written, it was written in such a way that it was mostly encouragement as opposed to punitive. So we want to remind folks that if people are getting supplies, going to childcare, working for an essential business, caring for a loved one or another person, you don't have to have a permit or anything that allows you to go from point A to point B. There is no direct, I guess, permit anyone needs to do that type of activity. Other questions? Otherwise, at this point, we plan to do this again next week, provided that so much of this information seems to come throughout the week, and it gives us an opportunity to summarize it. It gives us some time to synthesize it. A lot of times we're getting the information not long before it's being distributed to the media. So, of course, we're all trying to scramble and make sense of things. So we appreciate your patience as we make it through these times, and enjoy the weekend. Hopefully you all get a chance to get out of your offices and take a walk this afternoon and enjoy the sun while it's out. And we encourage you to be well. Thank you all.